I told you.
All right, welcome out, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everything else. Tonight is Guild Night, and we have a new speaker coming in. So a friend of mine is going to be talking to us about playing with numbers tonight. So we've got all sorts of good stuff going there. Coming up over the next few weeks, we have fan favorite Vodkanaut doing our talk next week. Practical Wi-Fi defense. I happen to know he's bringing some stuff to play with. He will be down here at the basement, so join us next week. Come on out and play. After that, we have, going into March, the Kraken Hour, the first week, I think it's the third. In the second week, we have the Gucci Home Lab show. Our beloved Cochise should be back to demonstrate with Fake J again. I don't know the topics they're going to play with yet, but it should be interesting. We were talking about firewalls next, or firewall rules, and what we're going to play with there. Cochise may have something different to try to distract Jeremy from meaningful stuff. We'll see. After that, we have the pub crawl. So taking advantage of those Ponogatris we built a few weeks ago. And we're going to go drink, wander around Ybor, and capture some Wi-Fi handshakes. On other news, I've heard that one of our favorite doctors, a wonderful Dr. Sunny, has a... My brain fell out. Scholarship. That's funny. Getting old sucks, guys. So we got a scholarship. Deadline is Sunday night. Get your applications in. Take advantage of that. We're giving away money. So put it to use. Let's get some skill up going. That ends Sunday. Don't forget, don't get left out. All right. We've been doing a bunch of other things. There's been a few posts in Help Wanted. I just got contacted today from a company looking for help. So you've got a couple ins again. Check them out if you're interested. There's lots of stuff open that we can give you recommendations for or push you to internal stuff. Take advantage of it. We hear people complaining all the time. People are looking for new jobs. It doesn't get easier than this, folks. Take advantage of it. I'm going to be monitoring YouTube, Discord, as usual. Give me a shout, ping me if you have questions, and I will pass them on to our presenter tonight. And I think that's it. Do we have anything else? Membership. Membership. For those of you who are still hanging around without a membership, remember we canceled memberships back in December, going live into the new site so everybody could start nice and fresh. If you want to continue to participate. Wow, that was cool. Participate. If you don't want to get kissed out of Discord, sign up. We have had probably half of you re-up your memberships, so take advantage of it. You've already missed our discount subscriptions, so if you didn't take advantage of that, too bad, so sad. Get your memberships in starting next week. We are going to start pruning Discord and kicking people out. Now, that would be the nice thing to do. I'm actually going to just dump you all into a single locked channel and set up a bot to remind you every hour to re-up until you quit yourself. So sign up, don't forget. Otherwise, when you ask why you're in the jail channel, that's why. All right, so we're going to get ready to pass things over to our presenter. Let's pass it to you, Aaron, for Strength in Numbers.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabriel. I really appreciate being here. My name is Aaron Medvik, and I've known Gabriel for about 5 or 6 years now, and I'm really excited about this opportunity. So thank you so much for letting me come. Gabriel, you have a lot of feedback. Really excited about this opportunity. Okay. Awesome. Thanks. So as I mentioned, my name is Aaron Medvik, and I like numbers. So one of my favorite series was, in fact, Numbers. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, definitely check it out. It won tons of awards for the feedback. Gabriel is really bad. Definitely check it out. Just won tons of awards for won tons of awards for visualizing numbers and complex mathematical principles in a really easy, consumable way. Definitely watch it if you have the chance, if you don't mind a little bit of murder and crime. Also, I like Numbers, one of my favorite movies, Multiplicity, back in the day. My claim to fame is I have 20 plus years in analytics and research, and I've created a patent-pending model to predict home prices. And I was a top data consumer in the world for Qubel 3 years straight. And if you have no idea what that means, it means nothing to you. But it was pretty exciting. Data extract, and my current company is one of the largest data consumers in the world, and I, being one of the top analysts at the company, maintained that top spot for 3 years straight. It's pretty cool. I worked at AIG, Chase, Wells, and Citibank over the years, and those companies averaged about 250,000 to 300,000 employees each. And so when I came on board to Epic, they were like, "This is such a large company." I'm like, well, "What are you talking about? This is tiny." At those bank companies, I was in the business team, and I was the data expert with a computer science background.
Okay, so we have to let them
I helped
know
program
that
and
you
create
can
models
mute
for them
YouTube.
quite quickly. And when I came on board to Epic, they're like, "Why don't you work in the analytics team, but you can be the business expert?" So I was like, "All right, that sounds great." So in 2017, I came on board. And then afterwards, Fortnite went up like crazy. Direct correlation or causation, who's to say? So other than that, tennis is one of my large passions in life, and my daughter, who's 11, she's also been training since she was about 3 years old, and we go around to tournaments and get to play other kids, and it's one of our favorite things to do together when we're not playing board games and or name that tune. And so again, to brag about my daughter, 2010s onwards, she could name any song in title within 2 seconds of the song, and her record for number of songs in 1 minute, 17. We've been trying to get her on the air to some radio station to show her abilities, but that's yet to be had. So if anybody knows anybody that likes to see that talent, it's one of our fun things to do. So. I lead a team here at Epic, and one of my the team's visions.
Aaron.
Some of my visions. Yes.
So you are listening to the YouTube, I think, and we're hearing the echo.
Yes.
No.
So you are listening to the YouTube, I think, and we're hearing the echo.
I'm not.
We just wanted to make sure we were killing that echo on so you didn't have to hear it going back and forth the whole time.
I will stop my sound.
I don't think we can hear you now.
How about now?
We got TV on mute right now. Yeah, we can.
Okay,
We're good?
we're good now.
Do you want me to start back on some other slides or we're good to go?
Yeah, you start wherever you want. So we could hear you. We were just hearing a light echo in the background.
I like tennis. So does my daughter. I love board games. They're amazing. I have about 300 in my collection, and my circle of friends have, you think that's a lot? Some of my friends have up to 1,000 or more. And one of my friends actually had about 5,000 board games, and he had to buy a new condo just to put all his games in it. It's pretty exciting. Actually, he's in Tampa, and he runs the largest meetup group of board games in the Southeast. So check him out. Also named that tune, as I mentioned before, if you didn't hear me. Yes. Testing. Yes, I can hear you. Cool. And like I said, I named that tune. My daughter and I love to do that in the car. 2010 music is our genre of choice. Her record so far, 17 songs, name and title in under a minute. Okay. So my team's vision, strength in numbers, the title of the slide. Obviously, it's one of my vision statements. Kind of got it from Gladiator, where Russell Crowe is like, people divided, they get conquered, but you put people together, that is where the strength is. And also, he kind of said strength and honor too, but I kind of think it's strength in numbers. And then the double entendre, obviously, is numbers can help tell the story. The numbers help forecast, help give you substance to your stories and what have you. So it's one of my favorite sayings. And then do not hide failures or errors. Oh shit, I messed up there. But show them. I mean, if you're afraid to make an error, afraid to make a problem, or your code you think you're going to mess up and you're afraid to do that, then this is not the right world for you. You're going to mess up. You're going to make errors. You're going to do things wrong. It's learn from your mistakes, try and do things differently. At Epic, we are oftentimes the first to do things. We're the first ones to do cross-play, cross-progression, many other things. First one to launch a huge game on Android. We messed up a ton, but we were the first, and we learned from our mistakes. And now we fixed them. So another one is all is better than some, is better than none, is better than wrong. So when reporting on numbers, the worst thing you can do, obviously, is send out wrong data. And obviously, that's not something you want to do. But oftentimes, you get into that struggle of like, oh, the board meeting is tomorrow. You need these numbers. You're like, well, I'm not comfortable, but I'll send them out anyway. And they're wrong. Well, that's horrible. And so I tell my team, do not make that presentation. Do not report on those numbers if you feel not confident in the results. Or if you feel confident in some of them, then just give them a little bit of information and iterate on it and come back. And obviously, the best example is give them all the data as quickly as they want it, immediately, like a drip of data. So, but with all of that, make sure you look for impact, because if you're just putting out data and numbers that don't mean anything, you're wasting your time. So you have to see people are looking at your data, using it, and interpreting it correctly. So that's some of the vision here. Cool. So do I have any questions so far, Gabriel? I mean, that's a little bit about my background. And are we doing okay in audio?
All right, so no questions yet. Everybody's confirmed that you're coming across much better now. So we've fixed audio.
Awesome, great. I still hear myself in your audio, but that's okay. Awesome. So, okay, enough about me. Let's get into some backgrounds and some thoughts. So, like, over my time, I just have a natural curiosity for things. So one time I was at Chick-fil-A and I got a sandwich and I was like, this sandwich is kind of big. But then I was like curious, is it really big enough to like be proud of it? Or is it really big enough to I need to stop everyone in this restaurant and say, oh, look at this almighty large sandwich. And how big would that sandwich have to be for me to just stand up and cheer? And inversely, if you get a really small sandwich, how small would it have to be in order for you to complain to the management and go back and say, "Hey guys, this sandwich is not so good." So I wait sandwiches for like 3 months straight. Whenever time I went to Chick Fil A, and I assumed the packaging was about the same size and weight, and then the bun and the pickles were about the same weight. And so the biggest variance was indeed the chicken of itself. And so over time, I tracked this all out and put it into a data set, and as you can see, it got as normally distributed, and the mean weight was about 195 grams. But what was really interesting, one of those sandwiches at 170 grams was in fact like only a 2% chance of occurring. I should have taken it back. And that one sandwich that I thought was really big, actually, it was in the 95 percentile of sandwich sizes, but it wasn't as big as, like, oh my God, everybody, look at this huge sandwich, put it in resin and put it on Reddit for months. But it was kind of a fun project. And then I posted on Reddit, and what was kind of neat about this is that the North Carolina Science Olympics actually featured my charts and my graphs in their final essays, and it was pretty exciting. My daughter came home and told me, "Aaron, I did a Chick-fil-A thing." I'm like, "Oh my God, that was what I did!" So it was really kind of cool to see some of my random thoughts get used in the school system. That was kind of cool. As I mentioned before, I created a econometric forecasting model with the help of my peers at AIG. This is the first big project out of school back in 2001. And it used econometric forecasting model. Pretty much what that means is you use economics data to help predict things. And so what we looked at was 200 markets in the United States, and we tried to predict what home prices would do in the next 6 months to 1 year, and why. A lot of banks do investments into mortgage portfolios. So that was interesting. A lot of portfolio investments, so then they can then get good returns. And if home prices were to decline, then your risk rates would go way up, and then you would lose potentially a lot of money. So what this fundamentally did, we looked at like median home prices, and then if those numbers went skyrocket, like if you're buying a stock and hypothetically Tesla went to $1,200 a share overnight, you'd be like, "That's great," but you probably would sell, I would hope, unless you're into like game memes or stuff like that. But the idea is if the stock goes up significantly quickly, then it's probably going to come back down, reverting to mean. And so we looked at home prices, unemployment, demographics, and migration. Migration of like 25 to 44-year-olds that are normal first-time home buyers that are kind of going to be moving the needle. And so Raleigh, as an example, we have a really low unemployment. Our demographics of a lot of low 25 to 44-year-olds, and a lot of people are moving here because Apple and this company called Epic and some other major corporations are here. And as a result, our home prices are going up like crazy. In fact, it's one of the hottest markets in the country right now. In fact, Tampa actually is also in that top five as well. And so one would say Tampa and Raleigh, while it's going great now, there may be a mean reversion in the next 6 months to 12 months that would cause things to go sour. Standard and Poor's came out with a very similar model than mine about a year later, and Forbes magazine, not related to Standard and Poor's, but they said San Jose was the number one place to invest in 2000, and my model said no, it was the riskiest. Well, the U2K happened, .coms burst, the market collapsed, and San Jose's unemployment jumped to 40%, and then 6 months later, home prices crashed. I mean, lost half the value. And anybody that invested in that market would know really well that they lost tons of money. My model says stay away. Hopefully, whoever listened to my model saved a bunch of money. That was kind of one of my real fun first times out of college models. And I did the whole thing from creating the model to producing it to marketing it to travel around the country and talking to people about it. So it was really exciting. But we came here to talk about games. So Triple H, it's time to play the game. Why do people play games? So didn't know if this was like an open forum where we can talk and ask, or is that too difficult, Gabriel, to get people's feedback? Like, why do they think people play games, or is it better for me to just continue? Gabriel.
I relieve stress.
So we got to make sure that I have things muted so we're not getting the feedback here.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So for the people here, anybody want to chime in on why people play games?
Or why they play games.
So what we're getting here, play games for the laughs, to relax, to relieve stress, to escape. And then there's several people here who are out to murder noobs and to be the best.
Well, that was a really great summary. In fact, I did write that all down for you right in this presentation. So why do people play games? No, you didn't say to have fun. Murder noobs being one of the more funny ones that you said, but improve on your skills. So you're honing a craft, you're exploring different things, you give a chance to take risks and gamble from your seat of your at home. You can compete, obviously, and you can dominate, and you get brain stimulation and or dexterity stimulation as well. It's also a really great way to relax. A lot of people just come home, turn on the video game, and wind down with it. Socialization is great. You can play, especially now on Discord, YouTube, what have you, watch other people play games, interact, learn, go play it yourself, invite your friends, and play with a lot of different people. And so the social aspects of gaming is astronomically higher now, especially with their ability to play on what's called the internet. But I won't go into what that is. I assume everybody knows what that is. Escape, y'all didn't talk about that in the room. Definitely, you can get into worlds of fantasy and get sucked into alternate realities, and you can pretend you're different characters and what have you. And obviously, those are things. You got measurable progress. I mean, I think that one's huge. And in a lot of our world, we don't go day to day, and it's often gray. But in a game, you're like, oh, I've got to get level up. All I need to do is get 10 coins, build 3 things, and do this. And it's like, all right, I can really track it, and I'm measuring, and now I'm level 14, troll or whatever. And it really gives you a nice feedback loop, and it helps with the dopamines in your brains and giving you endorphins and what have you. Some people just like to collect shit. So you can collect all these different sets or accolades or rewards and hold them, present on them and brag about them to the world and things of that nature. And then lastly, sometimes games can be fun. But notably, that is not necessarily the first thing that we list out on why people play games. So thank you for the feedback there. Okay, I have a little video here. So in 2018, Fortnite came to fruition on things. It's the top searches on Google by day, and watch how things happen with Florida shooting, Black Panther, and then come March, we did a crossplay on iOS for the first time and pretty much took over. And this is all terms, not just gaming terms, of the entire United States, what we searched for. So as you can see, 2018 was a solid year for Fortnite. We progressed pretty much the whole entire year. Demi Lovato pops up, and we might see Logan Paul. I think he did a fight, and then Baby Shark comes up every now and then. Again, pretty much dominated all of 2018. Baby Shark took a stab at us. Hurricanes came in, a TV show came on, Baby Shark. Red Dead 2 came out, which is really cool. Bohemian Rhapsody came out, Baby Shark, and then come Christmas time, people started playing Fortnite again, and it was one of our best months that we've ever had, was December of 2018. And so this continues on, and I put the link in there, but you can click on it if you want. But that just shows the cultural zeitgeist that Fortnite was in 2018. And we couldn't wear, like, this shirt is actually from 2017, and I couldn't go out in public without being stopped about a dozen times. Oh my God, you work at Fortnite, that's so cool. Do you have some V-Bucks you can give me? I'm like, no, totally not. Like, oh my God, you're so cool. Do you know Ninja? And those are like super fun things. And then they were just one time I went to school to come talk to them about the economics of staying in school, and I had a Fortnite shirt on, and walking down the hallway, these kids were just jumping out and doing all their famous emotes and just dancing in front of me. I'm like, my God, this never happened to me when I was working for legal analytics at Citibank. People weren't going, yay, way to go, legal analytics, it's so cool. So that was just amazing for me. And as you can see, the rest of the United States was all about Fortnite back then. And we're still doing phenomenally well now, but 2018 was the bee's knees. So yesterday versus today. And so kind of talked about 2018 being a huge turning point for Fortnite. And as you can see, like, In yesteryear, I'm 40 years old and change, and used to go out and play on Nintendo and actually Atari, but I didn't want to show my age too much. But we went out to the store or maybe Blockbuster and rented or bought a video game cartridge, or your parents bought that for Christmas, and they were like $40 to $60 depending on the game. You came home and you put it in. You might have blown on it a couple times to get it to work, but you had one controller probably, and then you invite your friends over. Hey, come and play with me, and then they would bring over their controller. Or in those examples of Super Mario Brothers, you pretty much played by yourself, unless you played Duck Hunt. You could control it and then have the other person shoot it. But for the most part, you'd take turns. So the whole multiplayer thing didn't really exist too much. Obviously, a lot of sporting games and some racing games and allowed the multiplayer, and those are the ones I lean towards. Like Techno Super Bowl was probably my favorite of all time. And then Micro Machines car racing was also quite enjoyable. And then the picture, that's not me, though it looks a little bit like me playing the Game Boy on the phone, and Tetris being one of the most popular games of all time because it was included in the Game Boy. That being said, today is a little bit different. As you all probably know, with Discord online, multi player, cross platform, cross progressions. Cross progressions mean you can play on like the PlayStation, and then you can keep all your data and all your progress, and then go jump onto the PC and play. And all your information is there. All the same outfits are there. All your coin is there, depending on the shared wallet or not. But and then the Fortnite World Cup happened in the U.S. Open, and millions of dollars were given out in first place, and it was just it just took over the world, and it's a sensation. And watching other people play games on Twitch, it's probably everybody knows, it's just completely different and totally new experience, and enabling people to just literally download a game, probably for free in Fortnite's example, and then literally play with hundreds of thousands of different people, have the opportunity and get to know people and socialize and whatever. Now I can go like, Gabriel, let's go play Fortnite right now, and we don't have to be in the same room. It's so subtle, but the amount of data that you can possibly imagine that can come from this difference, it's amazing, quite frankly. Next slide. So yesterday's data, pretty much you can show sales. You didn't have connectivity to internet. All you did was track how many units were sold. And even then, it was probably a little bit more difficult because you sold units to stores, and the stores then sold them. And so maybe it wasn't even a pure sale data. Now we can still track sales, which is kind of cool. Most of them are probably online, even though you can still buy games in stores, but most likely it's just a digital number that you type into the game anyway. But with all this information that we have, we can track a shit ton of more data, retention, players coming back, concert attendance, how many people came to watch the concert, obviously. How well did something resonate with the consumer? Did they really enjoy something? The whole lifetime value of a customer, like did they spend one time or did they spend and buy multiple things? How many friends do you have? Is friendship important? Like who's the person that decides things? Like again, when I play with Gabriel's like, I'll play whatever you want. I'm like, all right, well, I'm the dictator. I'll say, let's play Call of Duty, or let's play this game. And he's like, sure, let's play. I want to play anything. And so knowing those types of connections and friendships, I'm the decision maker in this example. We can market to me, or if I'm hugely influential, then that might be something that, they give me some special perks or what have you. You can also make sure the user experience is great. Like you played and jumped into the mech and maybe you didn't like it, or you can see different things and actually fix things on the fly. Again, you don't have to like go replace all these cartridges. You just have an online game and you can update it, in a week or two, and it's a new patch, and then you can instantaneously fix things. And looking at all this data, obviously you can track hours, players, metrics, ratios, any kind of like revenue per hour, those types of things like that. And so it's just the number of things you can track is just massive, and it's pretty exciting. I'm going to pause for questions. So I know I'm going really fast, and I want to just make sure I interject and give an opportunity for questions. Gabriel, if you don't mind, I'll turn it over to you if there's any questions so far in your channels.
All right. So let's see. We don't have a lot of questions online. People are saying that they miss LAN parties. We have people talking about Xbox Connect and Halo LAN with everybody on a quarter of the screen. But we do have a question asking if the psychology and science behind how people make decisions vindicate the data that you're seeing, or is it kind of the other way around? Are you seeing the data kind of vindicate the psychology and stuff? You want to try that one?
Sure, that's just an easy one to start, right? So the psychology, does the data back it up, or does the data contrary to what you would believe? So one of the fun things in my past is like saying, Trey, would you be willing to spend $50 a week on coffee? You'd be like, absolutely not. That would be preposterous. And of course, you talk that way. And but then you go out to Starbucks in the morning and have a coffee. It costs you $5, and in the afternoon you may have a shot of espresso. And after obviously 7 days of doing this, you spend over $60, and your actions actually show differently to your mindset and actually what you said. And that's one of the really interesting things too, is like you can go into focus groups, or you can say like, I don't really like this experience, or I don't like this, or I don't feel like this is what I want to do. And then your actions are completely different. And so kind of getting back to the question was, does the data show like the psychological impacts? And I'm thinking that's more towards the psychology of choice, deciding over A or B, how different designs are on the screens, like different colors, different themes. Maybe if it's a family centric versus if it's really full of blood and shoot killing, like Call of Duty. It's more adult. It's got the blood splashing on the screen. Fortnite, we don't have blood. So there's a little bit of that psychology of like knowing that that game is a little bit more family friendly and more tolerable. But then also, then you have the question about, I guess, straight out the block is addiction, and getting people to play video games is addicting for those 15 or 16 reasons that I mentioned to what other avenue gives you the ability to like walk to your living room and have all those fun things happen, and you're able to achieve all those 16 things without spending a dime going anywhere, and just literally connecting to my best friends and being able to play. And so a lot of these things get to be a little gray. It's like retention. Is that psychology? Well, yeah, probably. It's coming back, opening your wallet. Is that psychology? Well, yeah, probably. Having the friends and connections, absolutely psychology. I mean, so yeah, absolutely. All the data. Yeah, probably.
So we have a follow-up here. They asking, when selling a product, is it easier to influence the decisions, or is it easier to cater, or do you use the data to cater to the decisions?
Got it. I'm going to answer that one in a little bit because I actually have a slide that kind of talks.
Or is it easier to cater?
Sounds good.
Or do you use the
Cool. Yeah, and I didn't want to get too far into the whole psychology and like our games addicting part, because in some ways they're all those 15 things are really great, but I'm not going to go on record saying that games are addicting or not. So anyways, cool. So with all this data that we have, some of the questions, and kind of segueing from what you just asked, was like, what time of day do people play? How long till somebody gets burned out? How long should the season last? How frequently should we keep things, making them fresh? Like, obviously, if you make something fresh every single day, that might be a little too quick of a cadence. However, if you do something fresh every 3 or 4 years, people might be like, well, when's the next version of Diablo coming out? It's like, come on. Understanding the fundamental why, like if you look at those 15 different reasons, each one of those buckets could be answered differently with the data, and then we could be missing potential opportunities if in fact the game is not fun, or the game is not challenging, or I can't go beat up on noobs, as you said. And then like looking at looking at economics of opening up wallets, and how does that return players, for example. And then actually getting into the game itself and like understanding like are different guns balanced, and there's something OP, if you will, like the double pump shotgun. Is that balanced? I was like just jumping in there and destroying everybody, and only the people that know about that gun could really hurt the noobs. And to your example, like all the noobs are probably like, this game sucks. All I do is drop in and die immediately. And one thing that's really cool is like, how does music help? I'll get into that one a little bit later, but, and then why do people buy certain outfits? And that kind of goes into your question. So why do people buy certain outfits? And so with that, it's another one of my projects. So on the left is some of the top selling IPs of all time, and their skins or outfits, if you will. So, and then on the right is the top 10 Mario characters and their respective characters or outfits. And so one thing we note is like they could be characters on the right, but then they're actually wearing outfits, or there's kind of a little somewhat of a nuance, like is Kong really just Kong, or is he wearing an outfit that's Kong? We like to think he's really just Kong because he is that. So what are some certain like attributes of outfits. Why would some certain people buy the outfit on the left or Lynx, or why would they buy Oshi? Well, I don't really know. I mean, a lot of things is familiarity. Oh, I played Zelda growing up, or I played Halo, and I really like those outfits, and I remember and kind of have a nostalgia, if you will, for these things. Or it's just badass. It's so freaking cool. I mean, the artistic work, the knife and the blade and just the hair. It's so punky. Or quite frankly, it's a dark outfit. I just like dark. Or it's a pink outfit. I like the color pink. There's so many different reasons why people. I keep turning this off and it's not. Stop sharing for 1 second. Can't have that coming up all the time. Cool. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay? We're good? Cool. So what are certain attributes? Like, why would I pick, for example, Luigi over Mario? Maybe I just like Luigi, or maybe I like the color green. Or if I pick the princess over Mario, maybe I like the color pink, or there's certain other attributes, or maybe I just don't like hats, right? Or something over here, like there's something that's really cool and badass. So with that, like, how do we figure out what does well? Like, well, that's easy. We just look at the numbers and see how many units sold, and that's simple, right? And looking at historical transactions, and we can set up some expectations based on what other things sold in the past, and then that's pretty simple. But what are like things about the outfits that resonate or sell better? That's what gets tricky. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Well, do we know why there's certain things about the outfits that sell better? Why does a outfit that's spiky hair do better than like a combed over hair? Or why does red sell better than blue? Or why does a male outfit do better than female, or vice versa, female better than male? Or why does a non-human do better? I mean, we don't know, and we can ask people, but they may tell you 10,000 different reasons. And so what one of my special projects that I did at the company, I said, well, let's try to figure this out. And so I said, well, what are some deterministic and non-deterministic attributes of these outfits? And again, going through that, deterministic was if I have like a bunch of 6, 7-year-olds in a room and say, okay, answer me this. Does that person have eyes? Yes. Does that person carry a sword? Yes. Does that person have a gun? No. Does that person have a hood over their face? Yes. Does that person have a mask? Yes. Is that person a human? Yes. Is that person or is that outfit an animal? Well, yes. Those types of questions that all of them would probably answer in the same way we labeled as deterministic. Now, what gets really tricky is the non-deterministic attributes of these same outfits. That would be something where it's not binary, some sort of linear scale. For example, is something scary, or is something comical, or is something sexy, or is something funny or quirky? All these different like adjectives, if you will, to describe the characters. And so, how do we go about assigning those attributes to the outfits? Well, I hired an intern and we said, go do it. And so he was able to do the deterministic ones quite easily, just simple yes and no's. But then the non-deterministic ones, he's like, I don't know. I love scary movies. I am 30 years old and I know all these IP characters and I don't find them that interesting and that quirky. I just resonate well with them. And so he didn't think anything was scary and didn't think anything was that special. I'm like, this isn't going to work. He has an extreme bias. Being an individual working at a game company in North Carolina, just it wasn't good enough. And so what we did, we just simply put out some surveys and got people to answer the questions, and that was very helpful. And so now we have this huge data set of deterministic attributes and non-deterministic attributes. Well, that's great. Now we have a bunch of data. Well, what can we do with this? Like, what did we do with this? Well, what can we do with this was like what I was hoping to do was figuring out, like, again, why do people buy things? What does well? Does scary do better than comical, or does females do better than males, or humans do better than non-humans? Those are some of the questions I did, and at the end of it, it's like, all right, that was neat, but then what can we do about it on the business side? And so one example is like during Halloween, if we sell a bunch of scary outfits, like dark and bloody-esque, if you will, and the whole entire audience is like, this is great. But there's a segment out there that says, I don't like scary things. I like comical or I like funny things. And if you keep producing or showing scary outfits, then that segment of the population are going to potentially churn or not be interested or not buy things from you. And obviously, you want to help make sure you give something for everybody. And so that was kind of one of the outfit analyses. And I don't want to go too far into detail as to what we did with it, but there was a lot of fun things that we could do with it and a lot of decisions that were made. And so, for example, we could say, what was the scariest outfit? Well, let's make that part of our campaign. Or what was the most fun outfit or most memorable? Let's make part of that as our campaign. And that was all because of the data that I put together. So that was a lot of fun. Okay. I'm going to transition to the next one. So music is extremely important in all of the facets in the world. And so like any show that you watch normally has a theme song to it, or a laugh track or a soundtrack. For example, if you watch Friends was notoriously having the laugh track in the background. And if you ever watch an episode of Friends or Big Bang Theory for that matter, without the laugh track, you're like, this isn't that funny. During the COVID last week tonight, with John Oliver was showing without any of that background sounds. And it was like, this is not funny. And I don't know where to laugh and I don't know what to do. And it's like, it just did not resonate. I don't remember any of it, but I still remember and what game it was and what level that was on. And because of certain music and how we operate. One thing that's really neat, and you can take this away next time you go to Chipotle. Chipotle hires a musician to curate the music for all the Chipotles around the world. And depending on the time of day and how busy a Chipotle can get, the beats per minute fluctuates. And so why is that important? Well, as humans, because we are highly suggestive, we tend to chew to the beats per minute. And so if beats are faster, we're chewing faster. And if it's busier, we get the fuck out of the restaurant. So next time you go to Chipotle, go there and listen to the music, do the beats, and then turn around and watch everybody eating. You will see that they're eating to the same cadence and that the beats of the music is. It's just most amazing fun thing. And it's really, really cool. And that's such a simple psychological thing that people don't even realize what's happening because of music, again, tied with the music and theme songs and marketing campaigns and TV shows. Music is extremely important. But so for us, for the gaming companies, like obviously the background music is really important. In Fortnite, we have it in the cars and where we play, the load up screens, some of the marketing campaigns, and then most notoriously, we have concerts. Concerts or live events that we have, albeit small ones in Party Royale, or sometimes we have really large concerts that break the internet, and we can track all that data. And so what I did was made a visualization of our data. And so Marshmello, if you're not familiar, back in 2018, we did a concert with Marshmello and he broke the internet. 10 million plus users at one time watched his concert. And it was an amazing feat. And we got tons of publicity and it just the world went crazy. And you saw on the video Progress to the United States 2018 March was Fortnite was all around the country. And then later we decided to go with a different band in April of 2020 after COVID. People weren't out and about much. They were at home. And so what's better thing to do is to play video games. And so when Travis Scott came in April, he shattered Marshmello's records and it was phenomenal. And so Travis Scott's down here. And so let me back up a little bit. This is Spotify followers, and the sizing of the font is how many followers you have on Spotify. And the bigger you are, the more followers distinctly. And then the proximity to which you are close to somebody is like a neighbor or nearest neighbor, if you will, for Kendrick Lamar and Travis Scott, meaning there's a ton of overlap between Kendrick Lamar's followers and Travis Scott's followers. In that if we were to make a concert for Travis Scott and we wanted to get the exact same kind of sentiment, almost the same type of followers, the people to watch, we would probably go with Kendrick Lamar. Likewise, if Marshmello, we want to do something similar, we would go with Calvin Harris. And so I put together this visual that kind of helped tell the data and was very easy to share and quite easily consumable by our executives and thinking, well, who should we go with next? And it was like, all right, well, should we satisfy the same people that came to the last concert, or should we try something completely different? And if anyone didn't know, we went all the way up here with Ariana Grande, arguably some of the highest followers in this visual and in the world. And that was one thing, huge audience, completely different genre of music than the other two concerts that we went to, and arguably not shown on this data, but perhaps higher female followers, and maybe resonates a little bit younger than Marshmello's followers and Travis Scott's. And so that was a really interesting opportunity for us to go down that route. And then one thing that I did was like take that data and say, well, how did Ariana Grande's first time visitors to Fortnite do compared to Marshmello's first time visitors and Travis Scott's, and seeing which one did better. And well, quite frankly, one thing that we kind of missed in this whole analysis was that Fortnite players like rap. And so this area right here may have been better for the masses, though again, Ari might have done really well for some of those new players to Fortnite and or get a different type of audience. So what's kind of cool is if you draw a triangle from Ari to Kendrick to Marshmello, what's right in the middle? Well, Bruno Mars. And so I was like, we should do Bruno Mars next, and did this last year. And quite recently, a couple of weeks ago, we announced that we did the Bruno Mars and music and some outfits in the game. And whether or not it was because of this chart or this visualization, I don't know. But again, it resonated quite well with our audience, and it did very well. On a complete side note, what's really cool about this is like, well, if you find an area of music that you really like, you can zoom in and find other similar artists to kind of listen to. So I took I like Bruno Mars and Chainsmokers, but I'm like, what else could be like them that I don't know? It's like, all right, well, let's go through this list. I'm like, ooh, Lost Kings. Let me Google them or YouTube them, and George Maple or Oliver Goldrum and what have you. And it's like, oh, these are actually some really fun artists, and some of the music is really cool. And again, because of the proximity to these other artists, that's probably like, yeah, totally, obviously. And Spotify probably uses a similar kind of recommender for music as well. But I just found this project to be really cool, and it's nice, beautiful artwork, and the executives really enjoyed looking at it. Quite simply, like, oh, should we go? Ariana Grande did really well. Should we go to Taylor or Selena next, or maybe we can help an up and comer and find one of these smaller artists to kind of go with. So I'm going to pause again, Gabriel, for some more questions. I know I'm going really fast, but.
Fortnite has like zillions of stars.
All right, so we do have a couple questions. So I'm going to ask you one, let you go at it, and then I'll hit you with the other one, because both of these seem to be pretty big questions. So first one is, what advice can you offer for someone who's got to work with data for taking the wide range of human emotions and thoughts and opinions and stuff like that? And then what would you recommend, or what advice can you give for taking those kind of qualitative things and transitioning that to some sort of empirical data that can be quantified?
Okay, so one thing, the first thing you said, if I repeat this back to you, is how do you take the human aspect out of it? How do you take the bias, if you will? And then likewise, how do you take the qualitative and make it quantitative, if I heard you right, or empirically show the numbers? So the first one, it's one thing that I teach my team about is like, you almost have to be a robot when presenting the data. And this is one thing that I would help prescribe for my team. It's saying, don't say like description, oh, Travis Scott did amazing. He did so well. He was up like 20% above expectations. I'm like, well, A, he did so well. That would mean that you had some sort of baseline. Did we have a baseline? Well, no, not really. He did so much better than expected. Well, who expected, and how much did they expect? Where are the numbers? Do we expect him to have 100 million followers and he only had 10 million? Our listeners, like, who's expecting it? And so having that type of language is supremely important. And then don't use adjectives to describe. Just say, Travis Scott had 10 million followers. This is, or listeners, this was up 30% from a normal day. It does sound extremely robotic, but you can't ever argue that. And there's no definitive, like, well, like, you can't argue it. It is what it is. And so that's one of the things that I try to teach my team. And don't put that bias on there and saying, oh, then all of a sudden the smaller artist comes on board and they did 10,000. It's like they underperformed and they did horribly. I'm like, no, they didn't. They did 10,000. It is what it is. Now, with that, if you need to put some quantitative on that qualitative things, you definitely need to have measurable goals. And so when we did the RA concert, some of the things that we tried to measure is how many new users did we get because of RA. And normally we have, say, 100 new users a day, and with the standard deviation of, call it 10, and all of a sudden in that concert we had 130. Well, then we can probably say about 10 to 20 of them were because of RA outside the normal distribution. And then we also establish other things like, did those users retain? Did they socialize? Did they talk on YouTube? Did people post videos? And then we could able then to actually measure those types of feelings of like RA was a hit success. Otherwise, it's like, I can say that, but what do you mean? Like, it's like, it's like, and then I do talk about intuition a little bit later in my slide deck, but there are also like conversations about how you handle intuition and where the numbers say, and sometimes they're in conflict. But obviously always going with the numbers does well, but also it can bite you in the butt as well. So I think I helped with that first one. I know the second one, applying the empirical data to qualitative attributes, it kind of goes hand in hand a little bit, but again, so don't put artificial human qualitative attributes onto the numbers. They did well, or it did great, or it was below expectations. And then likewise, if you have those feelings and thoughts, set up goals ahead of time, set up expectations, set up what we think concurrent users are going to be, or set up what you think the number of users are going to look like, and then baseline it. And then when things happen, then you can say, okay, this was to our expectation or was to our forecast, and we did really well at forecasting, and et cetera, or you didn't, and that's fine. I hope that helped answer the question a little bit. I know it's an extremely vague question, and hopefully my answer was not as vague, but hopefully that helps. But next question, if you have one.
So let me tail on to that first question before we move on. Do you have any advice for taking something like emotional quotient, or let's talk about an anger measurement, or a hate measurement, or something like an emotional response, and making that quantifiable data?
Yeah, well, a couple different things here. So an emotional response to make it to quantifiable data. So there is an external tracker called like Q-score, and that's like what we have in front of us, like how do certain celebrities measure up on Q-score. So it's based on surveys. It's like how well liked are some people, and how anti-liked or how disliked are some people. And so like looking at those and measuring those types of emotional responses to certain artists. So for example, Kanye West, if I would have told you his name a couple of weeks ago, you would have elicited maybe decent to neutral response to him. But recently, if you've been paying attention to the news, you may have some negative sentiment towards him because of the things he's doing with Pete Davidson and company. And so when you have those empirical, natural responses, and quite frankly, you can look inside the game, because again, we have a shit ton of data. So mech was probably one of the most hated things in the game, where it was you landed in a robot and you was overpowered and you can destroy people, but it allowed the noobs to come back and fight you. And so your jerk of a friend that just destroyed everybody, they stood a fighting chance. But it was also one of the most hated things in the game. And so we could look at the data and say, what was the last thing you did? And then attribute, and if you didn't come back for a day, 2 days, a month, or whatever, then we can apply that most likely over large numbers. We can say that you didn't come back because of the mech, or you didn't come back because your friend didn't play anymore. And Gabriel is a good example. If I stop playing Fortnite, and then Gabriel's like, well, I don't want to play Fortnite, I'll play something else now. And so then it's a spiral of impacts. And so those are two things that we definitely look at. And then one of my special projects now is just to track all these different things you can possibly do in the game, and figure out if any of those things that you do really drive more players, more revenue, churn, retention, coming back. All those things could potentially be driven by tiniest of actions. the tiniest of little things like sliding in the game. It's something really cool. I want to go check it out. I checked it out and I enjoyed it. And then that triggered me to go do something else. Or something bad happened in the game and I just don't want to play anymore. And then 10 of my friends don't play and then their 10 friends don't play. I'm kind of getting away from the question, but there are, while you can't discernibly apply like hate or dislike to something in the data set, you can definitively see correlation and potential causation to things and then attribute them to different events or different things that happen or that you did in the game. Absolutely. It's going to be hard to say like an example like, oh, the mech was 3 times more hated than whatever, the chickens or whatever, or the chickens were 3 times more liked than the shopping cart. It's really hard to do it that way. But going back to the last question, you can say those people that engaged in the shopping carts were 3 times more likely to retain or come back than those that didn't, which then attributes a positive score to that action, if you will. But the best and easiest way is to ask surveys. But again, going back to Trey and the fact that he lied about drinking coffee and buying all this coffee, it's also really hard to assign extreme truths. So say the survey says, I hate the mech. Then every match you jump into the mech and you shoot people. Like, well, it's opposite. So looking at the data is the supreme way of doing it. But again, it's hard to explicitly define emotional feedback to things. And quite frankly, I hate certain things, but I want to churn it out to get to the next level. Or because going back to my list of things, I want a collection and I have one more thing. But in order for me to do that one thing, I have to go sweat it out and do something that I hate or do some stupid drive around the map. I'm like, this is stupid and I don't like it, but I want to collect it. So the data is going to give you a lot of false positives too. And so luckily for us, large numbers will help channel that out and get to those answers hopefully a little bit better. Cool. Any other questions before I proceed? I have a few more slides.
All right. So another question with data gathered in that way, like the slide you have up now, do they see similar trends or patterns analogous to Binford's law with large groups of numerical data?
I'm not familiar with Binford's law. If you can
Neither
expand
am
on that,
I.
please.
I was just reading it. Let me see if Vodkanot's going to give us a clarification there. So I'll let that one, if Vodkanot clarifies for me, I'll bring it again. But we've got another one here. How do you best judge how much data or how many attributes on a user to include when trying to learn about user patterns with so much data? So he mentioned specifically when you're trying to bring in outside profiles and stuff like that. So kind of how do you determine or how do you judge or decide like how much data, how many attributes per user or per object when you're trying to start something like this?
Well, that's the fun thing. We have a massive amount of information on all of our users in the playing and mostly a massive amount of like interactions with the map. By massive amount of information on the players, not the actual demographics of the players, but what they do in the game to clarify. And so with that, to your question's point is that there are a ton of things. And so quite frankly, we just pour everything into a bucket and then put it into multiple regression models and try to whittle out correlation and causation. And some of the things are like, okay, well, that feels kind of correlated. And that's kind of when your intuition comes into play and says, for example, everyone that jumps out of the bus within 5 seconds tends to die really early. I'm like, well, duh, because they're all probably landing in the same spot and 30 people can't survive in the game. Heavily correlated, not causal per se. But again, going back to your fundamental question, pouring everything into the bucket and then pulling out things that have the low p-value and high correlation, we're like, okay, those make sense. And then applying some sort of, that feels good. But what's really interesting about our data set is that we're not building widgets or O-rings for the challenger. We don't need things to be 99.9% accurate. We're okay with marginally better than a coin flip. If we can tell me with 50, 60% confidence that doing Bruno Mars is going to drive a ton of retention, that's good enough. But to your point, how do we discern what types of attributes are enough? And we could have 1,000 attributes, and that's just ridiculous because you can't really do things to 1,000. So I think we go down the list and say, what are things that are actionable? What are things that we can like measure? And then what are things that are that we can like really be a positive experience for the end use customer or the gamers in this case. And then look at that kind of things. And I know it's kind of again a soft answer, but that's a really hard question, and it's not really a black or white answer. And again, an intuition, impact, measurable, correlation, causation are some of the things we have to look at there.
So that was a great answer. One of the things I want to add for folks is if data is not measurable and it's not actionable, it has very little initial importance. So remember that when you're trying to decide what attributes and what things to include in your data set, those are the things that you can always start with at a basic level. First, it has to be measurable in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly quantitative, but it has to be measurable in some aspect. And then it has to be actionable to drive the most amount of value. So that may help people asking there. I have another one for you though, Aaron. You ready? So this came from another one of our guys. Any recommendations on how to get desired demographics to participate in your surveys and stuff like that? They've been working on some surveys and they're having a really hard time getting certain demographics to participate, and it ends up really skewing their data sets.
I can understand the skewing. That is definitely something that happens all the time. And I understand about getting certain people to answer. One thing that helps is having 20 million people come every single day to interact with your product. And then that's very helpful. Another thing that helps is making something that's really fun tied to it. Again, hypothetically, a video game. But getting then, and these are all like free surveys that people just really want and they're really engaged in the game. But if you get down to the level of like starting to pay people for things, there are entire expert level abilities to curate the right types of questions and then curate the right types of audience that are not answering your question. Because quite frankly, that's not my domain of expertise, but we do have one of the best QAs people in the world at our company. And if you would like to write me an email about that, I'd be more than happy to ask him and see if he's able to provide some better feedback than my bullshit answer. But I don't, quite frankly, I just don't know. But I'd be more than happy to put you in the right hands.
All right, Aaron, that's all we have for questions right now. We've got a couple for the after hours talk,
Okay.
but we're going to hold those until later. So
Okay.
it's back to you.
Awesome. My fiance maybe watched the St. John marketing CEO of Netflix special, and that she talks on TED Talks, and I highly recommend everybody to watch this. Is how to mix intuition into data. And I kind of talked a little bit about that earlier, and she gave a good example, or two good examples, in my opinion. That Spike Lee in 2000 was working on a Pepsi campaign and who to pick as an artist, and she's like, my feelings are we shouldn't go with somebody really that popular now. We should go with this new up and comer called Beyonce, and that we should do that. And everyone's like, no, she's unheard of. We don't want to mess with that. And then at the end of the day, they went with Beyonce, and obviously you can know that that was a really good decision considering what's happened recently. But she just had this massive amount of intuition going into that thought process, and the data told her one thing, intuition said another. She went with her gut. Much like the first quote, and again, this is from her TED Talk, was if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses when Henry Ford made the Model T. And so he's like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make the next best thing, what I think is going to be what people want, and went with his gut. So finding out what the next big thing is and making sure you don't rest on your laurels. Again, Fortnite, super amazing in 2018, still amazing today. But if we just stuck on that, then we might be up and passed by some two kids in their garage making the next Apple, if you will. One of the fun things to look at if you have time is the story of ICE. Guy Kawasaki used to work for Apple. in this example said the story of ice, where they used to go into frozen lakes, chop big pieces of ice, take it to the stores, and then distribute it, or take it directly to people's houses and store it into an ice bucket in the garage. And then that company that made the ice buckets, then there was another company that said, well, why don't we make refrigerators that automatically make ice? And then what his point was, the person that distributed the coffee from the ice from the lakes, or the person that made the ice boxes in the garage, the person that made, or the company that made refrigerators, were all different companies. They weren't innovative enough to do different things. They were all trying to make faster horses. And so that's one thing that we really want to make sure we focus on too. Again, we can make Fortnite the best thing ever, but we have to look out for the next big thing. That was some really cool stuff. So going back, things I ask of my team, take ownership of what you do. If you see something, say something. Recent example, we have a high-level board summary deck where I asked one of my teammates on slide 3, can you fix this one chart? And he's like, sure, no problem. He did it. And I went back and saw on slide 4, there was another icky thing on there. And he's like, well, I didn't look at that because you didn't tell me to. I'm like, no, take ownership. Anytime you see something, try to go in there and fix it. And anything that you see an opportunity, it is yours. We are owning all the numbers and all the visuals. If at worst case scenario, offer a suggestion or tell me, like, Aaron, I saw on slide 4, it's a little bit wrong. Do you think it's worth fixing or telling the people about it? Likewise, be inquisitive, much like my Chick-fil-A question. Try to figure out the solution for things. Anything that you just asked in this call, like, I'm going to go back and read about the law, Benford's law. I'm going to go back and study because I'm naturally want to learn about it. Find your passion. They say if you find your passion, you don't work a day in your life. And so everyone here at Epic loves games. We want to do what's right for the gamer. We work a ton of hours, but in the day we're making a product that is much cooler than one would argue on my legal analytics when I worked at Citibank, as represented by the people that come out in troves to dance in front of me when I'm wearing Epic shirts. And what's really important, and I think Gabriel, you're doing an amazing job with this guild, is socialize and build relationships. That's the fundamental for pretty much all of working. You're going to be stuck in a corner doing data all day long, or you can rubber ducky, talk about ideas, get a different mindset, get the hive mentality to tackle the big projects. Sometimes it could be as simple as like, hey, what do you think about this? Have you thought about that? Oh my God, totally. I'm going to go run back and do it. And because we socialize and curate that natural communication of teams, we enable that. And a lot of people have different backgrounds, kind of like your demographics question. I try to look for diverse and inclusion when I'm hiring people so that I can understand, like, if I have everybody that's just like me, I'm not going to really benefit from my socialization. I want people that are different than me, that challenge me, that agreeably irritate me, but being inquisitive, again, going back to that one, same person over the slide deck, a couple weeks ago, we had a snowstorm in Fortnite. I was like, oh, I wonder what that did. Excuse me, a snowstorm in the United States, in central part Chicago and downwards. All the schools were closed for a few days during the middle of the week. What better thing to do is to play video games. And so we wanted to see, can we plot that on a map and see the snowstorm as it happened? And with Fortnite data, we were able to predict the weather. And that was so cool. And that was just because he was inquisitive about things. So that was kind of fun. So here's some of my favorite links. And again, if you share the slide deck, you can see it. But Edward Tooth, a data visualization expert, amazing person to talk with and look at. Again, awesome. Data is beautiful. Probably everybody on here knows about that already, but just a visual thing about on Reddit where people post beautiful charts. 538, Nate Silver's site, really fun to look at. Odds and calculation. Replacement value is one of my favorite things, like LeBron James when he's on the Lakers versus the Lakers when they're not having LeBron James. It's like one of the highest replacement values, or like baseball. They take a look at all the different things like that. Learn League, it's a trivia thing. Ken Jennings is part of it, and I do really, really bad at it, but I have a lot of fun.
That was a double checking.
I have a question asking about, would the Super Bowl halftime lineup resonate? It's from some strange person named Emily. Yeah, Emily on YouTube asked.
That's hilarious. So if I heard the question right, did the Super Bowl resonate with what? The 100 million people watching the Super Bowl, or the people that are playing video games, or me?
I guess you could answer them all.
Right, and so things I've been hearing tossing around is back when we were younger, we saw the Rolling Stones. We're like, God, these are so old, and who are they catering to? And then as we grow up, we're like, my God, these people are like old. Who are they catering to? I'm like, wait, me, I love this music. And then I got up and danced um and really enjoyed the show, and I thought it was awesome. I'm like, wait, that means I'm old now. But I think it definitely resonated, and I don't know the stats. I'd definitely be interested to see what is the average age demographic by sport and who follows them. And I think NFL, if I were to assume presently, they probably skew a little bit older than some other sports, but I think they definitely were catering to that target demographic of that 40-year-old person who happens to be me in our household, and it resonated very well. I wish the music came across louder and more. I could feel it more, and maybe smell it, and just really get that whole full experience. But it was. I thought it was amazing, and I really enjoyed it, and it definitely brought back a lot of my. Would like to say college, but also high school memories. But anyway, so the VizMap for financial reporting is pretty awesome. And then don't know what chart to use, go to the site, it'll tell you what chart to make. So it's really kind of fun. With that, we have 3 open analyst roles if you're interested at Epic. Game analyst, ecom analyst, and a creative analyst. And feel free to click there. I did double duplicate the links, but all intents and purposes, you can go in their careers page and find them. If who should apply, if you're curious, if you want to dig deeper into data, if you want to do something new every day. And also just remember, pie charts are bad, but making pies for Aaron is good. I do have some slides here on how big data works, because I did read the intro and we did talk about big data, but Gabriel, I also know that this is getting a little long, and I want to give the opportunity if people are interested in just a general overview of big data, or I can stop here and go to more intimate question and answer session, whatever the audience wants. And I can't really gauge them because I don't see anybody. So if anybody's interested in big data, I will go through this really quickly.
Okay, I put a poll in chat for big data, yes or no. And while folks are responding to that, we have a couple questions. So first off, one of the guys is asking, for those of us who don't have formal training in data collection or interpretation, how would you, or how could you get started from a beginner sense in using those kind of skill sets at work? So specifically data collection and data interpretation.
Go to Data is Beautiful and look at all the slides and the charts and see what is voted up, and then read people's comments on how they enjoy them and how they did not like them, and then be nitty on like, oh, I wish it was this, or I wish it was that. And then once you're like, oh, that's kind of neat, and like, oh, if I have access to the data, I can make it. And then follow like tutorials and online to like how to do things. So Tableau is one thing that we use here at our company, and it's pretty simple to use as far as the introduction of it. And then overlay that with an Excel file or CSV file that you can download from many different sources and just tinker around with it. And then just realize that looking at even Edward Tufte, that less is more. Getting just a clean, simple, refined chart sometimes can take you hours, but it tells you that story, versus just having all these visuals everywhere. Just like, oh yeah, look at me, I'm so amazing, and look at all this stuff I did. It just doesn't do it very well. So keeping it simple, looking at some of these examples, finding things that you like, and then just being inquisitive, as I kind of articulated earlier, and just jump into it. And feel free, if you want, to write me directly, and I could be more than happy to walk you through some of those things and talk to you about my path as well.
Okay, so we have another question from YouTube. Emily's asking again, would Kendrick Lamar alongside the older rappers and MJB resonate in Fortnite?
Kendrick Lamar and the older rappers, I don't have the older rappers on here, but absolutely. Kendrick Lamar, Travis Scott, again, broke the internet for millions of users came to watch him. And then Kendrick Lamar, being very similar to him, it would have done really well. And now that he was featured in one of the 6 artists on the Super Bowl, you would think naturally he would resonate. And then with some of the older genres, 50, or Eminem or the Old Dirty Bastard, what have you, or Tupac resonated, that we would probably cater to some of the older generations that do indeed play Fortnite, or maybe the parents of the kids that play Fortnite. And those could be a bonding experience. You can watch in the theater and like, oh my God, I know who this is. And so kind of having that the duos or combination concerts of the old and young could be quite fascinating. I know like Dua Lipa and Elton John, for example, they teamed up recently in Australia and they made a new song, and they recasting old songs, and it happens a ton of times. Like Run DMC was a great example, and Aerosmith, they got together and made amazing hits that were just so interesting. And so yeah, totally, I would think that would be fascinating for any of these smaller artists of today to hook up with some of the older artists of yesteryear, and I think it would be a great success. The Trans-Siberian Orchestra was a great example of that as well, where you're creating a new kind of music altogether. Again, I could talk for hours about music. It's quite fascinating. Thank you, Alan. Good question.
All right, so we have a bunch of questions stacked up for you. First off, do you have any examples of using data to improve the Unreal Engine?
We have an Unreal Engine team, and I don't physically work on it.
Do you have any examples?
And it's quite fascinating. And as I talked about earlier, how easy Tableau is, and the learning curve is relatively nice and flat. Unreal Engine is the opposite of that. It can do everything in the world, but it is so difficult to use, and the learning curve is extremely steep that we have tons of things in there that this team are experts on. I don't presently touch it, although I can get you in contact with that person if you're interested. But again, it's so different than everything else that I do. I just stay away from it. I really want to learn it because it's fascinating, and there's a whole ton of things in there that it can do. And I think it's the next generation, and the things it can do is just amazing. And it's been featured in tons of movies, tons of shows. And when COVID happened and the audience was empty, Unreal Engine came out and made it look like we had people in the background, or the Weather Channel uses it, or Porsche in its advertising campaigns, or The Mandalorian uses it. It's pretty much spread like wildfire, but I don't do that stuff.
All right, the next one we have you ever had trouble trying to convey something with data in graphics? And then how has your experience over the years changed how you do your job?
No, never had a problem ever. I'm amazing. No, and kind of what I was answering the other questions, like keeping it simple is oftentimes better. There were tons of times where pie charts is the best example. Like I have an executive that makes a pie chart. No, don't do this pie chart, do this. And they still go with the pie chart. I'm like, And then over time, I'm like, let it go. If you did your part, you suggested this, you led the horse to water, they did not drink in this metaphor, let it go. 1, 2, I have this other chart. Why don't I just show a table? Why don't I just show numbers? You don't need to show that 70% of the time this coin landed on heads and 30% it landed on tails. And then just show that over time, and showing those two numbers, 70% and plus 30%, they're always equal to 100%. So just show the top number. And then like, why even showing this? Just say that you have an unfair coin, and that's it. You don't really need to show all that. So just over showing charts and over showing lines and over showing graphics is something that's like, you don't really need to do. And that's something I've definitely learned over time. And looking back at some of the stuff I did in my AccuFactor modeling, I'm like, God, this stuff is garbage. And some of the language that I used to describe it was shit. And I did exactly what I told myself not to do. And my team is, I described it in ways that are extremely biased and applied some sort of expectations. And so definitely have learned over the years, and definitely like have kept things way more simple today. And it looks like it's like I'm fresh out of college sometimes, but I've come the full circle of like overkill, and then coming back to like making it digestible, consumable, and useful. Otherwise, you're just going to have a bunch of random, amazing dashboards that nobody looks at. So totally full circle. I've been shot in the foot so many times. And yeah, all those things.
Okay, the next one we have is a question. Do you find people are more accepting of in-game purchases for upgrades or straight subscriptions for the gameplay?
I can't really speak directly to Fortnite's numbers, but I would give you a non-answer. The interesting thing, like if you go to Chipotle as a customer, your parents or your friends or Chipotle may say, "Oh, here's a gift card or here's a rewards to come back. Here's $5 off your next order or free free guacamole." Or as you're walking into the store, maybe some kids like, "Hey, would you like to buy this gift card that helps my school?" And it gives you, $10 off to Chipotle. Well, I was already going to Chipotle. I was already going to spend $10, and now I'm only spending, $5. Or I was already going to buy guacamole, or maybe I would upgrade my drink. Anyways, the whole point of that is an extreme cannibalization that happens, or the one-to-one impact isn't there. You give me a gift card, I might not use it, or I might have just, I've already going as a customer. Or the best example is I would never bought before. This is my first time buying. And then as such, I become an engaged consumer. The problem is that is not, it's a small percentage of users comparatively in this Chipotle example. And similarly, subscription is those players, because they bought into the subscription, were probably already, in this metaphor, going to Chipotle once a week. And if Chipotle says, "Well, come every single day for, $20 a month," great. But that customer was spending $40 a month. They were actually losing money in that particular customer. And over large numbers, yeah, maybe it averages out to like $17, and then that we got 24 or whatever, and it's helpful. But all this work and effort for $3, is it really worth it? And so then the other side of it, and better example, parents might say, "You have free reign to the wallet, my credit card, just buy when you need," and kind of like can do, groceries or chores to get more V-Bucks. And maybe they're spending $100 a month on V-Bucks or Mario coins or whatever. And then now you do a subscription model that says, "Okay, well, that's your answer. Now you got to do all the chores, and what you're getting is whatever the subscription provides, no more." But that's also potentially cannibalizing. So but inversely, I may forget about it, like a gym. The best gyms want to like get your money and don't have you come. So it's a kind of a balance, and definitely look at the numbers, and we definitely have incentives for you to come and stay and play and to keep re-engaging, and not just doing the whole new thing where people Game of Thrones comes out and people get HBO Max, watch Game of Thrones, and then turn it off and don't become a subscriber next month. There's a huge issue right now with all the different platforms, and like Ozark on Netflix, they only launched half the season for you to resonate and stay for the next season or watch other content. So we're obviously doing similar things too, not just like throwing everything at once. So just making sure that our users are constantly getting new things. And so I kind of not exactly answering on purpose, but all those different things go into the equation at the end of the day. Users are constantly.
All right, so coming at you with some questions from YouTube. I have a question from Nat asking, do you filter out results that may not have a lasting impact on your baseline data set?
No. And yes. So you can group different, say how many times you play in a month is different groups. So some players play every single day of the month. Some players play one day a month. And so maybe one day a month is really unique because they just come and check it out. And then the 30-day people are like, come every single day. And then you have different groups in the middle that are just don't operate any differently. So instead of throwing things out, I would say we tend to group them and create similar buckets of people. And we can further bifurcate these users by a vast number of different things. That maybe there's 100 different buckets, and like that doesn't necessarily make sense to show a visual. But if you break it out to cohorts, maybe there's only 5 or 6, and that's much more easy to manage, to be visualized and actually action on. So we don't throw things out; we group them. I would say 99 times out of 100, or in this case, a bucket of 9.
All right, so the next question I have is, can you tell us what the most popular skin in Fortnite is? And then do you use data analytics to design new skins that might appeal to more people, and kind of how the artists might feel about that.
First one, I define popularity. Is it revenue? Is it usage? Is it like you buy outfits and never use them? Is that popular? Well, not necessarily. In the example, the first one of Nintendo back in the day, these were one of the top selling games of all time, but then did people actually play it? Well, you couldn't track it. So is that popularity? Sure. If playing it or using it in the game, is that popular? Yeah. So I think the question is, what is the most used outfit? But is that popular? Popular has a positive connotation. I think if I were to come back to that question, I would ask, can you be more clear? I would probably say most used outfit, or the number of views, or number of purchases. And then likewise, if you go back to like the original Skull Trooper back in October of 2017, I think it was, maybe in 2017, the game just recently launched. It was extremely scarce. It wasn't that great of an outfit, but because of its scarcity, it's extremely popular, but not many people bought it. So it's really hard to answer that particular question, because there's a whole ton of things that go into what is deemed popular. Scarcity being one of them, the cost, the eliteness, for finishing that first season to level 99 and getting the outfit is, really cool. You didn't actually pay for it, but you earned it. Things of that nature define popularity. So again, I'm not going to tell you what the number one popular thing is, because all those different metrics. But I think you can Google what's really popular and you get really similar feedback. And
So they clarified what the most used skin was, but then the question continued: do you use data to design new skins that might appeal more?
I'm not sure when they came in on the overview, but this was exactly the outfit analysis that I scrolled back to, and how I tried to look at deterministic and non-deterministic attributes of the particular outfits or skins, if you will, to figure out what did well and what resonated well, what was quote unquote popular, and then tried to influence the art team or the store team to then, feature things that are, like if, let's say 1 million users love quirky outfits and they have 9 of the 10 quirky outfits, and that last one, we can say, all right, let's refeature it and then hit a marketing campaign to those players. They're probably going to all buy it, for example. And that was one of my ideas. Another idea would be like, all right, let's make something that is fill in the blank more scary during October, or make something that's comical or silly. And yeah, so some of those things happened, but quite frankly, they were already like so far advanced in their portfolio and already working seasons ahead of time. And because of all the different rule sets that we had about not featuring things, it was very hard to actually drive those results. And then I can't answer you what is the most popular thing by wearability. A, I don't have it in front of me. B, I wouldn't be able to publicly. But then the next question comes about is like, if we have 50 million people playing today, and 50 million, and let's say 10 million people used an outfit, and then, let's say in October, we only had 5 million people play, but all 5 million people use that outfit. Would you argue based on percentages that outfit of 5 million was more popular than an outfit today that only has 20%, versus just straight up numbers? And again, I'm not answering, but those are other things that we had to take into play to define what is really that did well. But I would say something with dark and scary, and that you probably had to, reach a level 99 to get to, maybe like Raven or something like that, if I were to guess. But I would say something dark and scary.
Okay. The next question we have is, was there a data-driven choice on the number of clicks to buy V-Bucks to minimize people falling off before purchase?
Amazon is the master of one-click shopping. I imagine there were, everybody in the world probably follows their model. They've done really well. I don't actually know in the development of clicking, and I'm sure if there was 1,000 clicks, people would fall out. And obviously one click is patented by Amazon. So somewhere in between is the magic number. So yes, I pretty much guarantee that somebody somewhere thought of that, not me, not our team.
All right. The next question I have for you, do you see kind of ebbs and flows between patches and expansions and stuff? And how do you try to stabilize those better with regards to player activity or online player count and things like that?
Well, if a patch is out, people are downloading the game and not playing it, which I don't necessarily think that's what the question is asking. And then certain features of patch are impactful to players, or we think they are, or we hope they are. And then we can look at that and say, all right, our numbers are up because of that. And then again, in my example, 2 or 3 weeks ago, our numbers were up because of a snowstorm, or maybe up or down because of competitive forces. Super Bowl. People weren't playing Fortnite during the Super Bowl. Who? Oh my God, 100 million people watching it. Those are 100 million less people that can play or are playing Fortnite. Obviously, some people can be doing both because they're cool like that. But there's all these other macro things like this thing called COVID that happened in the last few years. Like during Christmas of last year, was all the players playing because of Christmas time, because of COVID, because of both, or the weather? It's hard to discern exactly. And that's sort of like really hard to narrow down. But again, going to the patches, the exact answer. We like to think there are certain attributes of that, but to take out all those other macro and micro impacts, it's arguably impossible, if not extremely difficult. And we try to do our best. And at the end of the day, it's really hard to narrow down those exact impacts without asking surveys. But again, going back to Trey and his lying coffee drinking self, it's hard to say exactly. And I know that's not exactly answering, but we don't know it a lot of times, and that's okay.
Coffee drinking self.
All right. So I have a quick one. So are you guys gonna bring back Unreal Tournament? Yeah or nah?
I don't know.
I have.
So with that, I think I have one more from YouTube asking, have you considered how you might use anomalous events like the Streisand effect to your advantage to drive retention?
Is that the same person that asked about Benford's Law? Because I don't know what that is either.
It's totally different person.
That's
Nope.
awesome.
So I don't know that one either, though.
Really smart audience. I'm not to pander, but I have no idea what that means. I'm but only a business analyst director.
Okay. So the next one then, can you talk if players in the game are grouped by behaviors, demographics, locations, all of them at all?
Well, first and foremost, we don't track demographics of our players. A, it's impossible. B, it's against a lot of laws. We don't track it. We don't know. We don't ask the people for any of that kind of stuff. We know what game modes you're playing. Like if you're playing like some of our creative maps or some VR maps, and maybe there are certain characteristics or attributes of certain players that play a ton of time. Like in my better example, like I did give earlier, people that play 1 day a month are going to operate completely different than people playing every single day of the month. And obviously, people that pay for the game and that don't pay for the game are going to operate differently. So yeah, there's definitely little segments here and there that we like to do, and I think there's a huge opportunity there. And one of the examples, not related to our game, was going to Disney World. And if I went to Disney World and there was a bunch of Star Wars balloons and paraphernalia in my room, I'd be like, what the hell is this? I don't want any of this stuff. And then I would just either give it to some random kid. It would not resonate well with me. But I know some of my friends, if that happened, I'm like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm totally going to go early in the morning, get the fast pass, and I'm going to go and get all these pins and get my shirt signed and everything like that. I'm going to be like, I don't care. And so if we could segment our players based on that kind of thing, or I know restaurants do it a lot of times too, and hotel people and airlines, and segment users and based on business or pleasure or things of that nature. And there's a huge opportunity there. And quite frankly, I think because of all of our data, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to pick that perfect set of numbers of like, how do we, hundreds of different buckets or just 2 or 3? And obviously if we only do 2 or 3 and we have millions of players, and it's not enough buckets. But if we have hundreds of buckets, it gets to be unactionable and can't do anything about it. And then that comes to another problem. So it's never ending. So yes.
All right, I think that's the end of the questions that I'm seeing online. I've pinged a couple times to see if folks have any more. We've petered out on Discord and YouTube.
Cool.
So is there anything else you want to say to round things out for us?
Strength in numbers, be curious, be inquisitive. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to connect. I'd love to build my social network. If you're interested in any of these roles, it'd be the coolest team you've ever worked for. Epic is amazing, extremely focused on diversity and inclusion. I think the world of Epic, and I think the world of my team. And I really appreciate, Gabriel, you invited me to come talk to your team. And hopefully this was marginally more impactful than staring at the wall. So I really appreciate everyone's time, and thank you for your inquisitiveness and your curiosity and some of the questions. And Gabriel, if you can ping me those 2 things that I didn't know. I know Binford's Law, and the other one I definitely want to go study. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We're going to go ahead and end it here tonight. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Don't forget to check our calendars for upcoming events. If you have questions or concerns about what's going on, let us know. Aaron has offered to share the slide deck with us, so I will post that in Discord for those of you still hanging around. He's offered to take questions as well, so if you want to ask questions, shoot them my way, and then I'll forward them on. If you want to reach out to Aaron directly, he was brave enough to put his email up there. I will put this out. Aaron's one of my friends. Don't screw with Aaron or you'll piss me off and I'll throw everybody I can find at you. So with that, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. We'll see you next time, folks. Bye now.